For as long as I can remember, I was the fixer in my family. If my brother blew his rent money, I was the one who quietly bailed him out. If my sister threw a tantrum and stopped speaking to our parents, I was the mediator who spent hours smoothing things over. And most of all, if my mother was having one of her infamous mood swings, I was the son who absorbed her emotional outbursts just to keep the peace. I wore that title like a badge of honor for 30 years, genuinely believing that swallowing my own feelings was the ultimate form of family loyalty. My mother had a toxic, controlling personality wrapped in a veil of fragile victimhood, and for decades, everyone in the family walked on eggshells around her. When I met and married Maya, everything changed. Maya was strong, independent, and secure in who she was. She didn't walk on eggshells, and she didn't play my mother's emotional games. I loved her for it, but my mother viewed Maya's healthy boundaries as an absolute act of defiance. For 3 years, I tried to play both sides, protecting Maya while simultaneously appeasing my mother. It was an exhausting, impossible balancing act, but I truly thought I could keep fixing the unfixable. I was wrong. The fragile illusion of peace completely shattered on Christmas Day. My entire family had gathered at my parents' house for dinner. From the moment we walked through the door, the air was thick with tension. My mother had spent weeks planning the perfect holiday, which really meant she wanted an audience to control. Throughout the afternoon, she dropped passive-aggressive remarks about Maya's career, the fact that we hadn't had children yet, and even the way Maya had prepared the side dish we brought. Maya remained incredibly graceful, offering polite smiles and refusing to take the bait. But my mother's resentment was simmering, fueled by the fact that she couldn't provoke a reaction. The boiling point arrived during dinner. My mother began loudly criticizing Maya's family, making unprovoked, deeply insulting comments about their background. The dining room went dead silent. My siblings looked down at their plates, terrified of setting off the matriarch. Usually, this was the moment I would step in, crack a joke, or change the subject to fix it. But before I could speak, Maya calmly set her fork down, looked my mother in the eye, and spoke in a firm, polite voice. "Evelyn, I love this family, but I will not sit here and allow you to disrespect my parents. Please stop." The absolute shock in the room was palpable. No one had ever spoken to my mother like that. For a second, my mother just stared at her, her face twisting into pure rage. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. She marched around the table, stopped right in front of Maya, and before anyone could move, my mother raised her hand and delivered a sharp, echoing slap across my wife's face. The sound of the slap seemed to echo forever in the silent room. Maya's head snapped to the side, her hand instantly flying to her burning cheek. My mother stood over her, breathing heavily, and screamed, "How dare you disrespect me in my own house? You have ruined this family." In that single, horrifying second, something vital snapped inside of me. The dutiful, accommodating son who fixed everything died right then and there. The blindfold was ripped from my eyes, and I saw my mother not as a flawed matriarch, but as a cruel bully. I stood up, my chair crashing backward onto the floor. I didn't yell, I didn't scream. A terrifying, absolute coldness washed over me. I walked over to Maya, took her hand, and helped her stand up. My mother, seeing my movement, instantly tried to shift into her victim routine. "Michael, look at how she drove me to this. You need to make her apologize to me right now," she demanded, fully expecting her fixer son to sweep this under the rug. I looked at my mother, and for the first time in my life, I felt absolutely nothing for her. No guilt, no obligation, no anger. Just pure emptiness. I looked around the table at my father and my siblings, who were all sitting there silently, expecting me to handle the situation like I always did. I spoke, my voice dripping with ice. "No one is apologizing. And no one is fixing this." I led Maya to the hallway, grabbed our coats, and walked out the front door, leaving the holiday dinner in total ruins. As we drove away, Maya finally broke down in tears, and I held her hand, vowing that she would never be subjected to that toxicity again. The aftermath was immediate and chaotic. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with calls and texts from my father and siblings. But the script had flipped. They weren't calling to check on Maya or to apologize for my mother's actions. They were calling because my mother was throwing a massive tantrum, refusing to leave her room, and threatening to cancel the family estate plans. They were panicked because the family dynamic was collapsing, and they needed me to fix it. My brother texted, "Man, just talk to Mom, tell her Maya is sorry so we can get past this. You know how she gets." My sister called, crying that the holiday was ruined and that I needed to be the bigger person. I ignored every single one of them. For the next 6 months, I completely cut contact. I blocked their numbers, ignored their emails, and focused entirely on my wife and building our own peaceful life. Without me there to absorb her rage and clean up her messes, my mother turned her toxicity onto my siblings and my father. With no fixer left in the family, their fragile ecosystem completely fell apart. My brother and sister got into massive legal and financial disputes with my mother, and my father eventually moved out into a separate apartment, unable to handle the unbuffered wrath of his wife. Last week, my father showed up at my office, looking 10 years older. He begged me to come home for Sunday dinner, saying the family was completely broken and that they needed me to bring everyone back together. I looked at him from across my desk and gave him a calm, unapologetic smile. I told him that for 30 years, I broke my own back keeping a toxic house standing. I told him that the day my mother raised her hand against my wife was the day I resigned from my position as the family fixer. I told him they could fix their own lives, or they could let them burn, but I was finally free. I chose my wife, I chose my peace, and I never looked back.